Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. Karen is a renowned medium known for her contemporary approach to psychic work, grounded in traditional principles. Since discovering her abilities, she has dedicated her life to bringing the word of spirit to a global audience. From the UK to the USA and from Asia to Australia, clients seek out Karen's readings, enroll in her mentorships, and participate in discussions about the transformative power of spirit. Known for her spirited presence and compassionate approach, Karen is celebrated as one of the most reputable and skilled mediums in the modern era. I love that. And I'm learning so much more about mediumship, to be honest with you. And I'm learning about psychic abilities, mediumship, intuitive practices, that. And you know what? This is a place I'm in my life at this stage right now where I'm discovering the gifts that I've always had, but they're just coming out more so. And so I'm excited to talk to women like yourselves because I really think that you make a difference in the world. I do.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice. And I agree with you, though, that sometimes people don't really recognize what they've got or how it's connected or how to use, their own abilities and things. So it's nice to hear that you're in that place and that you're kind of exploring that for yourself.
Absolutely. And just for our audience, can you just go ahead and describe what mediumship is and share how you initially discovered your ability to channel?
Yes, of course. So mediumship is about connecting this world with the spirit world. So we all come from spirit. We each have we are spirit beings in human form, and we come from there. We live our lives here in the physical, and then when the body can no longer house us, we go back home. But what a medium does is a medium has the ability to connect both sides of the veil. So when I do my work, I'm connecting with those spirits that have crossed over. I'm connecting with guides and spirit teams and bringing guidance here to the recipient or bringing evidential mediumship to the recipient of their loved one. And it really does, I feel anyway, bring a lot of healing, which is what mediumship is about, really. Whether it's, healing through connecting them with a loved one that they've lost or empowering themselves through the understanding of spirituality, but it brings healing. And I kind of didn't know that I could do it for the first part of my life. I remember always seeing spirit and always knowing that these people that I would see are not from here. They're from what I used to call the other place. And I was never frightened of them. I was never scared, but it became a bit overwhelming in my teens. And I started to really look at why is this happening? And then from there on in, I ended up meeting up with mediums because I followed mediumship. I absolutely had a passion for it from a young age. Of course, still not realizing that it was because I was a medium. But in speaking to these mediums, one of them said, "Yes, you've got to develop your abilities." And I didn't know what she meant. And I was saying, I can't do that. I would never class myself as a medium because for me, mediumship was so sacred and it was such a gift. And I just didn't really feel that I was honored enough to do that. But once I started my development, it all fell into place, and I knew then that this is obviously what I was supposed to do.
That is beautiful. So my mom, when she was a little girl, she was able to literally see and communicate to other spirits. Now, they were not always that friendly with her. She would tell me some stories that I'd be like, yeah, whatever, mom, I'm sure that really did happen to you, whatever. But I believe it, even though I myself have never experienced that. I know it's within our family. Even my aunt is very intuitive. My mom, like I said, when she was a little girl, the little story is that when she came to her house one time, there was a man like in a top hat, just was standing there, and she's like, "Oh, hello," just innocently. And then she's like, thought about it for a moment, like, "Wait a minute, is this man supposed to
Mhm.
be in this house?" And she turns around, and then he's gone. And
Mhm.
then there's been other experiences where things would visit her at night and just kind of like press on her chest and just she was like, "You're not supposed to be in here right now, go away," and it would leave. So it's just very interesting
Yeah.
that these things happen. How are you able to necessarily like get rid of the negative energy and invite just the positive ones? Are you able to shut it on and off, or how does that work?
Well, you know, a lot of it is a misunderstanding, because when the spirit world come around us and we feel them in a physical sense, which is what your mum went through, and I went through that too, and I'm sure many of your listeners went through this. And right away, your mind will tell you it's something bad, because your mind doesn't understand what is taking place. The mind doesn't understand the spirit energy. It doesn't understand what it is. You can't see it. You know, you can't really feel it in that physical way. So the mind will tell you it's something bad, when actually 99% of the time it is not. It's just that you are feeling the changes in energy. So a lot of people talk about, you know, the pressing sensation, the weight of spirit as they come around. But actually, usually what's happening is your own energy is blending with the spirit energy. So you do feel that in a real sense. But also, you know, people talk about sleep paralysis and things like that. But what's happening with that is your spirit is on the move from your body, and it feels like there's an outside energy pressing upon you, and it's actually not. So it's more about really the misconceptions of how spirit actually do work. And is there negative and positive? Well, there's negative and positive in everything. But in all of my experience as a medium for years and years, I have never experienced any negativity, because you are truly protected. Now, that's not to say you're not going to experience difficult energy or maybe oppressive energy, maybe someone that walked the earth that had an oppressive presence, or they were involved in things that were negative or bad, or however you want to say that. You are going to pick up on that as a medium, but that doesn't mean that they can harm you as the medium, because you're always protected with your own spirit team. So I think it's more about just acknowledging that you work in the light, you will stay in the light, and nothing else can kind of penetrate that light. And that's a faith I've always had, even though I have experienced the more oppressive energies, but I've never felt frightened of them, because I know I'm protected.
Yeah, thanks so much for clarifying. Yes, and talking about spirit teams, you had mentioned that. Now, do we all have a spirit team, and how can we get to know our spirit guides?
Yeah, we all have spirit teams. I think this is another thing that people think it's only mediums or psychics that have them, but it's not. We each come here, and it's almost like if you can imagine having a host of teachers at your disposal. So when you go to school, and through the different levels in schooling, you receive different teachers for different periods of time. And it's the same with your spirit team. There will be different guides and helpers that come in and out as and when you need them for that stage of your development. We each have a main guide, I would say, you know, one that is here with us from birth right all the way through our physical life. But the rest, I feel, come in and out as and when they're needed at any stage of our development. And you can connect with your guides and helpers. It takes practice, you know, it's usually through meditation. Not meditation in a way like people think, oh, you've got to remain quiet for an hour at a time and, you know, still your mind. In this day and age, with how modern things are and how express things are and how fast everything is, it's difficult to do that. So meditation can be anything from walking in the park, walking in nature, you know, just sitting and having like 10 minutes of quiet time, closing your eyes or listening to a piece of music. And in those moments, you can ask your spirit team or guides and helpers to step in and let you know that they are there. Now, you're not going to feel it immediately. You're not going to feel it every single time. You might feel nothing. Other times you might just catch a little glimpse of your, you know, someone in your team. But you can actually develop that and get to know your team.
Patience and practice, I'm sure. Just a couple of years ago, I felt so inclined to just hike constantly in there's some hills behind my home over here, and I just wanted to go be outdoors. And I felt you're absolutely right. Like I felt more connected to my spirit team. I feel like I do have a spirit team because it's so funny because like I'm a solopreneur, right? And then a lot of people say Gina and team, and I always think of my team like, yeah, that's my spirit team. They're
Mhm.
right
Yeah,
because they're
exactly.
helping me. I feel like they're helping me. Now, I've experienced a lot of death this last month. 5 family members had passed away, but I'm noticing that I'm seeing a lot more insects, some insects that I've never even seen before. I'm like, where is this black wasp that looks beautiful that has bluish color coming inside my house constantly? Like, are you going to attack me or what's going on? But often loved ones on the other side communicate through like different signs. Could you actually share some tips on how we can recognize and interpret these signs?
Yeah, recognizing signs is sometimes difficult for people because when the spirit world do bring signs, they are usually very subtle, or it's something that they know our mind will work with. So let's say a mother in the spirit side knows that her daughter would see a butterfly and pertain that to her, or a dragonfly, and the mother in the spirit side knows that the daughter's mind will go to that and say, oh, that's maybe something from my mother because we had a love for dragonflies or butterflies. Then what will happen is the mother in the spirit side will continue to make that noticeable. So she will kind of encourage the daughter's focus to be on that anytime she can do that. So it kind of gives that connection to the mother. And those signs can be anything. It could be something that you had in common with your loved one. It could be another one is coins. I see a lot. I call them pennies from heaven because lots of people receive small coins in places that they know they shouldn't be there. Music is another one. Spirit can communicate a lot through music, letting you hear a certain song at a certain time when you were thinking of that person. So there's all of these different kinds of signs that you can look for and kind of feel at peace with. And I think the biggest thing is to not let your mind overtake that, because a lot of times you'll see something and you'll think, oh, that's maybe my grandmother, giving me a sign. And then your mind will jump in and tell you, no, 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 that's coincidence, or you're just thinking that and it's not really. And it's pushing past that non-belief in your mind that you have to do. If you feel something in a moment, whether it's music, an insect, a bird, anything like that, if you feel in that moment like it's a message or a sign, then believe it and walk forward with it, because then what will happen is you will start to see it more and more. And that's what will confirm to you that it is a sign.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So pretty much go with your gut instinct or whatever you feel in your body. That's going to be like the sign that, hey, don't let your mind take over. This is
Yeah.
something that's connecting with you. Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's interesting. Now, what does it feel like and sound like and look like when you bring through messages from the other side?
Well, they feel different all the time because spirit will communicate with me on all different levels. So sometimes I will hear someone, sometimes I'll see them, sometimes I'll just feel them, or it could be all three. Other times, it could just be like I don't really feel them there in the minute, but as soon as I open my mouth, I know that I'm communicating through them. So it can feel very different dependent on the level of communication, the strength of the communication. The spirit people have to also learn how to communicate through my mediumship, and I have to learn to blend with them. So every individual is different, but in general, as an overview, it feels completely amazing. It feels like I am them for that moment. So if they're showing me something, let's say they're letting me feel something, maybe about how they passed or something like that, then I actually feel like it's me. And it's the same if they show me things, images, what they would see through their own eyes. It's like I'm looking at that object or that thing. So it feels completely amazing. It feels elevating. It feels very heightened. But I do know the difference. I do know that it's spirit communicating with me. And then once that's done, obviously, then I feel like myself again. So it's almost like an entrancement. It's almost like you go into an altered state to receive that information.
Oh, wow. And then you also mentioned that mediumship involves healing. Can you expand on how mediumship facilitates healing for both the living and the spirits?
Yes, of course. I mean, healing is the purpose of mediumship is healing, and it's to bring healing to those that are grieving through evidential mediumship, so that you know that your loved ones are still here, regardless of their physical life. They are still here and they live on. So that brings a form of healing to the recipient, but it also brings healing to the spirit person, because if you can imagine, you know, however you pass, whether it's a sudden passing, whether it's an illness or an accidental passing, we will go over to the other side. We still will miss our physical lives. Even though we know where we are, we will know that we are home, we will know that it's all okay, that, we're going to be with our loved ones again. but we will still miss hugging our children. We will still miss, you know, having a cup of coffee with our loved one. So we still grieve on the other side, not to the same extent, but we do still have that missing feeling. So when I can connect two people together, one from the other side and this side, it promotes healing on both sides. It gives the person here that understanding that their loved one is still there and that they will see them again, but it also gives the person in the spirit world that chance to maybe say something they didn't get to say, or let their daughter know how much they love them, or that they're with them, or that they can see the new baby coming, or whatever that information might be. And so that spirit person then feels healed too, because they got to do that and got to communicate that. So it really does give both sides the healing.
Yeah, this is something I've never heard. So the other side, they're still a little sad because they're not able to spend that time with their children or their mother or whomever. I didn't know that. Okay, that's very interesting.
Yeah, and they've also got to watch their loved ones in pain. You know, they've
Yeah,
also got
that's
to
true.
watch this grief overtaking their loved ones. And, you know, for anyone, you would want to help your loved ones. You would want to come through. And that's why when some people are a little bit, you know, worried about mediumship, or they're just not sure why you do it, or should you speak to a medium, I would always say to them, you know, the spirit world want to communicate. They want you to know that they're all right. There's nothing to worry about. You know, I think some people do get frightened of it at times, but it really is a beautiful, if it's done correctly, it really is a beautiful experience.
Can you share like a transformational story from one of your clients that have, sought out mediumship and then just changed their life?
Yeah, I mean, strictly speaking, you know, whoever you speak to, like today, I was doing readings today, and I spoke to a gentleman, an older gentleman, and he got an amazing reading from his wife in the spirit world, his mum, his dad. We talked about lots of things, and afterwards he actually messaged me and said, you know, this was his first ever reading, even though he's believed in spirit, you know, for years. And the very words on the message today, where it's really been life-changing listening to that and understanding that they are there. And that was just in a what you might call like a general way, but it wasn't really to the person, and it wasn't to the loved ones there. But there's been lots of times where there's been like bigger things, like people that lose children. You know, I feel that if you've lost a child, it's the hardest grief to ever come to terms with. And I've worked with quite a lot of families that have lost children, and you can just see the transformation of them understanding that their child is still very much alive, and that that child will always be connected to them. I remember doing an event, an audience event, and speaking to a lady there, a mother who had lost her son. And he brought through lots and lots of information that was verified. And right at the end, he shouted to me, shouted his name to me. And I said, "Oh, and his name is Kai." And she absolutely at that point broke down, because although she had heard all the other evidence, which was all true, that moment of him saying his name meant the absolute world to that woman. And from that moment on, it changed her outlook on it. She knew that her son was here. She knew it was him. And so it really can change and alter someone's the rest of their life, really. And you know, I feel very blessed to be part of that every single time.
What a beautiful gift it is. Yeah, I can totally see how it can change their life because here you just feel like this emptiness and then just knowing that hey, no, the spirit is still there around you and then it's okay. It's just gives relief. Oh
Mhm.
wow. Now
It
can
does.
yeah. Now can everyone learn to channel and connect with their departed loved ones or I mean, how can we practice if we are able to?
Yeah, so everyone, every single person here on the earth has a psychic ability. Now, we all have it to varying degrees. There's some people that will not develop it too much, but they have it for themselves. So we call that the sixth sense or the intuition. And then other people will be able to kind of develop their psychic abilities and skills and maybe pick things up for other people and maybe do readings. We all have a connection to spirit because we are all spirit within our physical body. So we are all connected to our loved ones over on the other side. Not everyone is supposed to be a medium. I think mediums are born, it's usually within your family somewhere, you know, in the lineage of your family. So there are people out there, mediums out there, that are just supposed to do this work. It's just something that's in them inherently, and that's what they've come here to do. But that doesn't mean that everyone else can't connect with their own loved ones. We can all ask, we can all try to, like I say, meditate, practice that quiet time, or ask for signs and keep practicing and keep believing the signs that we do get. And I do think it's just purely down to an understanding of how spirit work and how they move. And so maybe I would suggest that people look into that and explore that, read books, you know, find out information, speak to mediums, so that they know what they're looking for, so that they know, how do I go about doing this? Because also at the same time, there's a lot of stuff out there that's not true. You know, there's a lot of things that you might find on the internet that really, it's not really about spirit, it's more about entertainment, you know, and really spirit are not here to entertain us. They're here to give us that glimpse into their world and let us know that this life that we lead here is the temporary part, and going home is the main part. And really that's what they're here to do.
Wow. Yeah. I'm just reminding myself, like, yes, just yesterday we were watching TV, and of course they were just making fun of like mediums and tarot card readers and everything. It's like, no, this is real stuff. Like, I've experienced it myself. And I mean, I'm sure there's people who have, you know, their doubts, but you know, I feel it. And like I said, since I became sober in 2017, I am more connected to my spirit. That's why I have
Yeah.
Shine Within as my podcast.
Absolutely, but
Yeah.
it's true, you know, the strength that you can get from understanding that you are spirit, and understanding that there is a higher part to you, and can get you through things in life, like recovery, like things that are difficult situations and adversities. And really, by understanding who you truly are and what your power is in this life, it really can move you through things in such a different way.
Yeah. Now, can you actually provide 5 tips for tuning into our higher senses effectively?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, there's probably about a million, right? But I think that one of the biggest things is to really start to learn how to do breath work. Breath work is where if you take a deep breath and inhale and exhale, when you concentrate or focus on that breath, you cannot focus on anything else. It's impossible. So I think practicing breath work is a really good way to get started, even if it's just in the morning time or in the evening time before bed, kind of saying, okay, I'm just going to have a minute of this, you know, breathing deeply, inhaling and exhaling. And you know, people do it to relieve stress, you know, take a deep breath. You hear people saying it all the time. But actually, if you look at it more than that, and you start to understand what it changes within you when you do it, if you can practice that, then start to practice finding that quiet time so that you can connect to your own higher self first. Because we do have to understand who we are as spirit beings before we can connect to those in the spirit side. So if we can connect to our inner self, like you've done, your higher self, and just understand that that part of you is true and real, then you can start to do things like meditation, or speaking out loud to your loved ones, or asking them to come to you in your dreams. Sometimes journaling is a very good way, you know, automatic writing is a very good thing as well, where you just sit with a notepad and a pen and just start to write. And before you know it, there'll be lots of inspiration that's coming from your higher self, your guides, your helpers, and possibly your loved ones too. So there's all of these different practices that you can do, but it does start with the breath. It does start with an understanding of, I am not this physical being. I am a higher spirit being in physical form. And once I can connect with myself on that level, then I can connect with those that are in the spirit side.
Oh, I love breathing exercises, by the way. I was just discovering this in 2018. I'm like, no one taught us how to breathe properly, right? I just remember
Oh, yeah.
hyperventilating
Yeah,
from
people
nerves.
don't. Yes, people don't teach you, and it's really strange because I have a grandson who's 1, and my son is very spiritual as well, and his wife is too, and he sent me a video a few weeks ago and said, watch this, and it was my grandson Isaac, and he was just going to sleep, and they were saying good night to him and things, and he started to inhale. deep breaths and then out and deep breaths. And Lewis said to me, oh, I've been doing breath work with him for a few months. So even from such a young baby, he already knows to take a deep breath before he goes to sleep. And in the morning when he wakes up, he takes this big deep breath and exhales. And my son said it's so important to teach him now. And I just thought that that was amazing. It was funny to see, you know, this little child doing it. But it really should be part of what we learn in schools. It should be part of, you know, learning about who we actually are as physical beings. But unfortunately, you know, you will have social media and everything's technology, and all of that takes away from what we really need to be listening to, you know, and that is the inner self.
Oh, you're so right. And by the way, you don't look like a grandma.
Thank you.
Looks like you'd have the 1-year-old. And then
Well, that's very
Isaac.
nice.
And Isaac's my stepson's name. I love that name. It's
Oh,
so
I love it.
cute.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we've been teaching the children to breathe with us as well. We'll have a moment, and then I know the little one, he's 8. He's just like, I'm tired of breathing.
Yeah. I know children either like it or they'll get, you know, fed up of it and tired of it, but we know it's all for the better. And the thing is, I think if you make it something that's part of what they do as routine, they'll do it without realizing it eventually. You know, I remember my kids when they were younger, we would go out for walks and I would say, oh, wait, just stop. And both my daughter and my son would say, oh, Mum's going away to do this again. And I'd say, just look, take in, you know, whether it was on the golf course or whether it was at the beach. I live on the coast. And I'd say, look at that. Look how awesome that is. Take a deep breath, take it in. Sometimes I would say on the golf course, let's sit down on the grass for a while. Let's take our shoes off and just sit down. And they would both at different times be like, oh, here we go. But now, as they've grown up and they're adults now, they know that that's, you know, the truth of it, and it should be about connecting with nature.
Absolutely. Yes. When my children get hurt, first thing I do, breathe, breathe, because it
That
automatically kind of eases the pain. Well, at least for me, that's whenever I get hurt, that's the first thing I do.
It does. It does. And it's mindset, you know, it's soothing. And, you know, a lot of things that we do now are about mindset. And I think for the younger generations, anyway, for me, it's hard for them because everything is social media, everything is online, it takes away from actually true connection, true understanding. So if you do have children, you know, if any of your listeners have children, you know, it's so important to teach them that, you know, breathe, take a moment, be quiet, be still. You don't have to run 100 miles an hour at things, you know, there has to be time to relax. And in this world at the moment, what I see is just everyone just not being aware of that aspect to their being, and that's what causes stress and that's what causes illness. And you know, I think really if we take a step back, and thankfully, you know, on social media too, there's a lot out there that does, more and more people are starting to be aware of it. Podcasts like yours, it brings that awareness, thank goodness. But really, I think life moves very, very quickly, and if we don't teach our children to just stop and breathe and stay still, then their life is going to be hard because of that.
100%. Thank you so much for bringing that up. This is very important because it starts with the children. And then that way when they are adults and they pass it to their children, and it's just like a ripple effect. And then we're all learning how to breathe properly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Karen, where can our listeners go ahead and contact you or find you? We're just talking about social media. If you have
Yeah.
social media and social media, website, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so everything, I do have social media. I'm on Facebook, Karen Docherty, Medium and Mentor, and Instagram. But the main place that you can contact me is through my website, which is karendocherty.com. So it's DOCHERTY.com. And everything about my work is on there. All my podcasts are on there, the interviews I've done, and really everything about my services, mentorships, readings, everything's on there.
Perfect. And we'll have everything in the show notes for you. But any last words you like to share?
Yeah, I always like to tell people, I think when people talk about psychics or mediums, it's seen as this, sometimes taboo subject, or maybe people are frightened of it, or people don't know what it is. But really, any true medium will be educational with what they're saying, meaning they will tell you how spirit work, who you truly are, how you can gain that in your own life. So it's about empowerment as well. And I would really encourage any of your listeners listening to mediums or speaking to mediums to take that part on board, because really it's about you and your life. And although we can bring evidential mediumship forward from your loved ones, really in a way it's so that you can go on and have the best experience in this physical life that you can have before you go home. So take on the empowerment side of it as well, and truly investigate your own spirituality.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Karen, for being on my show. I had a wonderful time talking with you.
Me too. Thank you so much for inviting me.
My pleasure.